Welcome. Hi, I'm Dr. Andrew Barker, and this is the Mycroft online lecture for William Butler Yeats' No Second Troy. Now, to understand No Second Troy, there are 4 areas you need to be aware of that are external to the poem. The first of these is Troy itself, what it is. The second is the Irish political situation around the time that the poem was written, which was 1912. The third is Yeats's relationship to a woman called Maude Gonne. And the fourth is Yeats's relationship to the Irish people and home rule for Ireland, independence for Ireland from England. Now, the way I'll teach these to you, I'll read the poem through first. I'll then explain all 4 of these areas. I'll then look at the poem's form, the way Yeats puts across what he wants to say in the poem. So this is the first read-through of Yeats's No Second Troy. Why should I blame her that she filled my days with misery, all that she would have late have taught to ignorant men most violent ways, or hurled the little streets upon the great, had they but courage equal to desire? What could have made her peaceful with a mind that nobleness made simple as a fire, with beauty like a tightened bow, a kind that is not natural in an age like this, being high and solitary and most stern? Why, what could she have done, being what she is? Was there another Troy for her to burn? So that's the poem. Now, let's look at those 4 areas you need to understand to appreciate this poem. The first, Troy. Now, Troy is an area in ancient Greece where a famous war was fought. Many of us have heard of it due to the wooden horse of Troy story. The war starts because a woman called Helen of Sparta, the most beautiful woman of her age, who is married to Menelaus, the brother of the Greek king Agamemnon. Helen of Sparta is taken from Sparta by the young Trojan prince, Paris. There are different versions of this story. Some would say that Paris abducts and rapes her and takes her away. Some say that because Paris is much younger than the older Menelaus, Helen is more than willing to go to Troy with the younger, more attractive man. The point is, Helen goes to Troy, and Agamemnon and his brother Menelaus mount a fleet of 1,000 ships to come and bring her back. A war is fought over this woman, the most beautiful woman of her age. A war is fought over her. She is the type of woman who can inspire an army. And Yeats is very interested in this sort of thing. So that's Troy. The second thing we need to know is the Irish political situation at the time the poem was written, which was 1912. In 1912, Ireland, the island of Ireland, is a part of Britain in the same way that Wales and Scotland are today. I'll try to relate this to you in the most uncontroversial way that I can, but it seems fair to say that the people of Ireland mind more being ruled from Westminster, being ruled from London, than the people of Scotland might or the people of Wales might, because Ireland itself is an independent landmass in a way that Scotland and Wales are not. So because Ireland is an independent island, there is a lot of call for Irish independence, for Ireland to have its own parliament. This happens in 1921 after a revolution that takes place in Ireland out of Dublin. The relevance to this is that at the time when this poem is written, the revolution, which is going to oust the British from Ireland, has not yet taken place. It doesn't take place until 4 years after this poem is written. The third thing you need to know is Yeats's relationship to a woman called Maude Gonne. And this is a great story. Maude Gonne is the love of Yeats's life. He meets her when he is in his early 20s. And he is a famous Irish poet. He's just written the Wanderings of Ossian. And Maude Gonne comes into his life and he says, "The troubling of my life started." He sees her, and in her he sees the woman that he wants to be his companion through his life. She is everything he wants in a woman. She is sophisticated, she is passionate, she's an Irish nationalist. She's the type of woman who is going to inspire him to greater things. She is a goddess. There's nothing unusual in this. A lot of poets love the idea of a muse, and they select a woman to be their muse or women to be their muse, and from this they get the work that they're going to present to the public. They get the poems from the woman they have selected as their muse. Maude Gonne was slightly different in this. She rejected Yeats time and time again. He was to propose to her 5 or 6 times over a period of 30 to 40 years, and each time she rejects him. The last time that Yeats proposes to her, she rejects him, and Yeats proposes to her daughter, Iseult Gonne, who also rejects him. When Yeats first meets her, he sees her as the virginal, beautiful, goddess-type woman. And he is distraught to the point of a nervous breakdown some 10 years later to find that she is the mistress of a very right-wing French politician and has had a daughter by her, Iseult. Sometime later, Maude Gonne marries a man who at the time was an Irish military hero, a man called John McBride, who Yeats was to call a drunken, vainglorious lout. Yeats hated him. Maude Gonne was to say of her relationship with Yeats, to Yeats, she has this wonderful line whereby she says that the world will thank me, Willie, for continually rejecting you, because I'm paraphrasing what she says here, but basically Maude Gonne's statement to Yeats on her continually turning him down and breaking his heart time and time again is, the world will thank me for this, because through me doing this, you will get more and more beautiful poems. And she was right here. He did. Through having this woman continually break his heart, Yeats gives us poems like Words, which is a wonderful one on his belief that he only became the poet that he became in order to express himself to her. And if she wasn't there, he wouldn't have been able to become William Butler Yeats, the Irish poet. He might have had a better life, he considers, but he wouldn't have been the person he became. He gave the world, or Yeats's relationship with Maude Gonne gives the world poems like He Wishes for the Close of Heaven, which is a short one, so I'll recite that for you now. He Wishes for the Close of Heaven goes, "Had I the heavens embroidered cloths enwrought with golden and silver light," meaning if I had a cloth which had all the most beautiful colours in the heavens on it. Had I the heavens embroidered cloths enwrought with golden and silver light of the blue and the dim and the dark cloths of night and light and the half-light, I would spread these clothes under your feet. But I, being poor, have only my dreams. I have spread my dreams under your feet. Tread softly, because you tread on my dreams. And what a beautiful last line that is. I have spread my dreams under your feet. Tread softly, because you tread on my dreams. Yeats must have been the only man in history to have said that to a woman and not profited by it. So there's Yeats' relationship to Maude Gonne, the woman to whom this poem is addressed, the woman he has loved all his life, who has continually broken his heart. And incidentally, we can question the poet's sincerity in complaining about the woman he has selected to break his heart, actually breaking his heart, all we like. But it is undeniable that Maude Gonne put Yeats through a lot of misery. The fourth thing we need to be aware of here is Yeats's relationship to Home Rule for Ireland. For Maude Gonne was a near fanatical Irish revolutionary. She believed passionately that the English did not belong in Ireland and was willing to do anything to get them out. Yeats wasn't as keen on the idea as she was. He was to become an Irish senator in the Irish Free State. But at the time that this poem is written, 1912, he is to say of his relationship to the English, "My hatred of the English is tempered by my love, and my love is tempered by my hatred." Okay, with all that in mind, that should give you some backdrop as to what's going on in this poem. So we'll now do the line-by-line read-through, whereby I will explain what Yeats says in this poem in the simplest English I can. Why should I blame her that she filled my days with misery? He's addressing Maude Gonne here, and this is quite simple. Why should I blame her that she filled my days with misery? Why should I blame her that she messed my life up? There's Yeats's days, there's a cup. Maude Gonne fills up his days with misery. Very simple stuff. Or that she would have late have taught to ignorant men most violent ways. Well, that's quite easy. Ignorant men means stupid men, and violent ways means to be violent. I would point out here that this is violence in a political connotation. This is violence against the British, or against the British colonial rule in Ireland. So why should I blame her that she has recently, of late, taught stupid people to be violent, or hurled the little streets upon the great, had they but courage equal to desire? Hurled the little streets upon the great, I see two meanings for that. One is to create a class war, the little streets being the little streets of Dublin, the poorer streets of Dublin, against the great streets of Dublin, the more important streets of Dublin. The line could mean, why should I blame her that she has attempted to create a class war? There's a definite reading there, a definite truth to that reading. The way I prefer to read that line is that Yeats is talking about the little streets as the streets of Dublin. I should phrase that actually as Yeats is talking about, for the purposes of this poem, the little streets as the streets of Dublin, and the great streets as the streets of Troy. And what Maude Gonne will do is pick up, if you imagine this as a map of Dublin and this as a map of Troy, he will pick up the little, she will pick up the little streets of Dublin and hurl them upon the great streets of Troy, meaning that she will make Dublin into the stuff of legend. James Joyce hasn't written Ulysses at the point when this poem comes out. Dublin is not quite the stuff of legend that it is later to become. So she would hurl the little streets upon the great, had they but courage equal to desire. So the line, hurl the little streets upon the great, either means create or instigate a class war in Dublin, meaning hurl the little streets against the great people of Dublin, of which Yeats considered himself, incidentally. Or create a legend by hurling the map of Dublin onto the legend of Troy, turning Dublin into another Troy. Had they but courage equal to desire, of course. And they, in this sentence, is the people of Dublin, the ignorant men to whom Maude Gonne is attempting to teach these violent ways. Great line, incidentally. Have taught to ignorant men most violent ways, had they but courage equal to desire. You can use that in a lot of other contexts. It would happen had they but courage equal to desire. If they had the bravery to do what they actually want to do. So I'll briefly read that opening question of the poem through. Why should I blame her that she filled my days with misery, or that she would have late have taught to ignorant men most violent ways, or hurled the little streets upon the great, had they but courage equal to desire? Now the poem No Second Troy is 4 questions. That's the first of them. The second is, what would have made her peaceful with a mind that nobleness made simple as a fire, a kind that is not natural in an age like this? So what would have made her peaceful? What could have calmed her down? What would have made her happy with a mind that nobleness made simple as a fire? Simple as a fire is a simile. There's 2 similes in this sentence, which are both really interesting. As simple as a fire and beauty like a tightened bow. So Yeats assesses Maude Gonne and says, what would have made her peaceful with a mind that nobleness made simple as a fire? Now, I don't really know if the way Yeats sees nobleness is the same way as I see nobleness. Nobleness, let's try and define it in a way that both of us might agree on. To him, nobleness, I think, is elevated moral conduct, right thinking. And those seem okay. Whether what Yeats saw as elevated moral conduct and right thinking would be the same as what you or I would see as elevated moral conduct or right thinking would be more open to debate. But Maude Gonne's nobleness is as simple as a fire. The reason I find fire as a simile so interesting here is that fire, by its very nature, burns, it destroys, it is one track. It's as if Yeats is saying that Maude Gonne's nobleness made her single-minded, having a one-track mind. And that's not necessarily a good thing. Simple as a fire is something that you might say to someone who is a fanatic. It's not something you would necessarily say to somebody who you thought was deserved your praise. And that is indeed the way that Yeats is using this simile. With a mind that nobleness made simple as a fire, she has a destructive one-track mind. But who can deny that fires are also quite beautiful? Unless you're the one getting burned by them, of course. And Maude Gonne, of course, not only has a mind that nobleness has made simple as a fire, she has beauty like a tightened bow, a kind that is not natural in an age like this. Beauty like a tightened bow. Okay, in what way can a tightened bow be seen as beautiful? I think the answer to this is that in no real way can a tightened bow be seen as beautiful. Except, in what way is a rose beautiful? She was as beautiful as a rose. She was as beautiful as a sunset. Well, the only way that those things can be beautiful is that they are good to look at. So, do you think that a tightened bow is good to look at? Just imagine it, you know. I mean, you've seen Lord of the Rings, you know, it does look very cool. Beauty like a tightened bow. The trouble with that simile, or why that simile is so interesting, is that a tightened bow, by its very nature, has been tightened to fire. It's just about to be destructive. It's also an image out of antiquity. I mean, when Yeats says beauty like a tightened bow, a kind that is not natural in an age like this, the age is 1912. They didn't use bows, tightened or otherwise, for warfare at that time. They used bows in ancient Greece at the time of Helen of Sparta, later to become Helen of Troy. Her beauty is like a tightened bow. It's dangerous, and it is not natural in an age like this. So what Yeats is telling us here is that Maude Gonne is born out of her time. The people of Dublin aren't ready to, almost to receive her. That's slightly overstating the case, but not too much. Being high and solitary and most stern. Now, these attributes of high and solitary and most stern, the way the sentence is constructed, you could believe that the thing which is high and solitary and most stern is an age like this. It is the age like this that is high and solitary and most stern. But it's not. That doesn't fit in with the rhetoric of the rest of the poem. The thing which is high and solitary and most stern is Maude Gonne, Maude Gonne's beauty. Now this is a fascinating way to describe someone's beauty. Her beauty is high and solitary and very stern. It's almost as if he's talking about her as a dominatrix, not as a woman that he is very much in love with. I'll read that second question through again. What could have made her peaceful with a mind that nobleness made simple as a fire, with beauty like a tightened bow, a kind that is not natural in an age like this, being high and solitary and most stern? And then he gives us the penultimate question. Why? What could she have done, being what she is? What other options were open to her? Maude Gonne, being what she is, which we'll look at again in a minute. We know she's high and solitary at most and most stern. We know she's so beautiful. Her beauty is like the statues of old and dangerous. But what else could she have done, being what she is? Was there another Troy for her to burn? Now, what Yeats means in this final question, was there another Troy for her to burn, is that Dublin is no second Troy. It is not a place where heroes are going to be made. It is not a place where legends are going to form. The people of Dublin are too stupid, lazy and cowardly to follow Maude Gonne. They want to, but they're just too lazy to do it. They're too lazy to follow Maude Gonne and oust the British from Ireland. And if I paraphrase this rather flippantly, basically what he's saying is, what else had Maude Gonne to do with her life? Because the people of Dublin weren't up to the task of ousting the British from Ireland, so she had to content herself with messing my life up. Now that sounds very flippant, but why should I blame her that she filled my days with misery? Was there another Troy for her to burn? Maude Gonne is a second Helen of Troy, but the people of Dublin are not up to the task of being the heroes that she could make them. Now, let's have a look at the form that Yeats uses for this poem and some of the ways that his arrangement of lines in the poem seeks to influence the way we read it. And there's some beautiful examples of Yeats' form enhancing content in this. The poem itself is what we call a douzaine. It's a 12-line Shakespearean sonnet, mostly in iambic pentameter. If you look at it, it's basically the Shakespearean sonnet with the final couplet at the end removed. But most of it is in iambic pentameter, except where it's not. And where it's not, there is an effect created. Now we can either say that this is an accident of construction, or we can say it is deliberately constructed by Yeats to create certain effects. Let's see if I can convince you that where this poem deviates from iambic pentameter, it is done so because Yeats wants to draw certain attention to what is happening at the point when it deviates from iambic pentameter. So the poem starts off with, "Why should I blame her that she filled my days?" Iambic pentameter. "With misery, or that she would of late have taught to ignorant men most violent ways." Now there's 12 syllables in that line, but as an interesting example of the way we read iambic pentameter, we know that once we've recognised the form of a sonnet, the sonnet box is what this is constructed in, we tend to almost try to read it to iambic pentameter. When we sub-vocalise this poem, we hear, "Why should I blame her that she filled my days with misery, or that she would of late have taught to ignorant men most violent ways." Now I know that ignorant and violent have 3 syllables in them, but we tend not to hear it like that when we read it. "Or hurled the little streets upon the great, had they but courage equal to desire. What could have made her peaceful with a mind, that nobleness made simple as a fire?" For years I said fire with 2 syllables as fire. It's 1 syllable, fire. "With beauty like a tightened bow, a kind that is not natural in an age like this." I know you can say natural, but you say natural to make it hit the iambic box. Now, this is where it gets interesting. The next line begins, "Being high and solitary and most stern." Now, I can't make that hit iambic pentameter because it starts with a 2-syllable gerund, being. You've got to stress the first syllable, be. Being high and solitary and most stern. Why, what could she have done being what she is? Was there another Troy for her to burn? So twice the poem deliberately opts out of iambic pentameter quite conspicuously, and it's both times on the same word, and the word is being. So what Yeats achieves here is he draws attention to the word being. When we read it out loud or when we sub-vocalise the poem, that line being, that word being, attracts our attention. Why? Well, I think what Yeats is questioning here, or introducing into the argument, is what we now call the idea of the nature-nurture argument. Is Maude Gonne like she is because she has been nurtured that way? She's like she is as a result of her upbringing. Or was she just born that way, being what she is? And whether we believe this or not, it seems that Yeats believes that she was just born like that. She was born as a reincarnation of Helen of Troy. She was born to be this fantastic person who could lead the Irish people. Maude Gonne herself often saw herself as like an Irish Joan of Arc. Being what she is, what else could she have done? The people of Ireland weren't up to the job of following her, so she's messed my life up instead. And note how much attention Yeats draws to himself here. The 4 questions which he asks are all about what Maude Gonne could have done with her life, and what she has done is set upon his happiness. There's another interesting example, one more I'll draw your attention to here, is the use of the word why in the last but one line of the poem. Why? What could she have done being what she is? And when we hear why, don't we hear it with a sort of shrug? As if Yeats is saying, why? What else could she have done being what she is? So he is resigned to the fact that this has been and is going to be Maude Gonne's effect on his life. I mean, I don't think he's happy about it. You can still be sad about something and resigned to it at the same time. But I hear a nice shrug in that. Why? What else could she have done being what she is? And I think Yeats expects me to hear that. I don't think it's beyond the realms of talent for a poet who pays as much attention to what he is writing as William Butler Yeats does, to be able to create these effects. Yeats, incidentally, would often write his poems out in prose first and then find a way to inveigle what he had written into verse. It's quite an interesting way of constructing a poem, I think. You know exactly what you want to say before you've actually tried to worry it into poesy. If you were to dislike this poem, particularly if you were Irish and you've never come across it before, you wouldn't be the first person to dislike it for what it says about the Irish people pre-Easter 1916 uprising. Yeats is very much caught unawares by the actual uprising of Easter 1916. As this poem shows us, he has very little respect for the actual working people of Ireland. And one of the problems we have to say about the morality of the poem, and this is not to impinge it in any way as a piece of art or a wonderful piece of love poetry, but don't we find that the poem itself takes no account of the actual human consequences to the actual people of Dublin of doing what Yeats would have them do? In other words, to paraphrase this rather flippantly, because the people of Dublin have not hurled themselves on British bayonets for the deification of my girlfriend, she's had to be content with messing my life up. Now, flippant as that sounds, that's not that far removed from what the poem is saying. When the people of Dublin did do exactly this, Yeats was confused. And he captured this confusion in a poem written shortly after the uprising of Easter 1916 called Easter 1916. I'll read the opening stanza of Easter 1916 to you because it's a very interesting one to contrast with No Second Troy, the poem written before the uprising of 1916. To understand this poem, you'd need to know that motley is what clowns wear. It's that type of uniform that clowns used to have, the crisscross in green. Easter 1916 begins, I have met them at close of day, coming with vivid faces from counter or desk among grey 18th century houses. I have passed with a nod of the head, or polite, meaningless words, or have lingered a while and said polite, meaningless words, and thought before I had done of a mocking tale or a jibe to please a companion around a fire at the club, being certain that they and I but lived where motley is worn. All changed, changed utterly. A terrible beauty is born. And once again, what a fabulous last line that is. All changed, changed utterly. A terrible beauty is born. They have become heroes. They have transcended the ordinary. A terrible beauty is born. Because this is what Yeats loves. Anything that can rise above the ordinary, everyday life and turn life into the stuff of legend, the stuff of myth, the stuff which an artist is worthy of giving his attentions to. Dublin becomes a second Troy. Maude Gonne becomes Helen of Troy. But In 1912, this was not to be, or Yeats thought this was not coming. Okay, I'll read the poem through one more time for you. So this is William Butler Yeats, No Second Troy. Why should I blame her that she filled my days with misery, or that she would of late have taught to ignorant men most violent ways, or hurled the little streets upon the great, had they but courage equal to desire? What could have made her peaceful with a mind that nobleness made simple as a fire, with beauty like a tightened bow, a kind that is not natural in an age like this, being high and solitary and most stern? Why, what else could she have done, being what she is? Was there another Troy for her to burn? Thank you. I'm Dr. Andrew Barker. That was the Mycroft online lecture on William Butler Yeats, No Second Troy.